Okay, ready to start the video? Yeah?
I'm ready to start a video.
Oh.
So we're going to talk about snakes that generally live in trees. So we're talking about arboreal species, which means basically they'll spend their life in the trees and very little time would ever be spent on the ground, in theory. Obviously, there's probably some animals that eke out different niches as far as locating prey and stuff that might be down on the ground. But a lot of these arboreal species live up in the canopies and a lot of times around streams and whatnot, and they'll come down very, very low and they'll hang on the edge of the streams as they're locating tree rats, mice, birds, bats, and in some cases lizards. And some are very opportunistic feeders. So we'll start with something that's very common, which is a green tree python. Green tree pythons are wonderful, wonderful captives. They're exotic looking, not too expensive, and can be kept without a huge amount of effort. So this is an Aru green tree, so this is locality specific. Tends to be very tractable. This would be an adult size female. She's kind of heavy bodied. We have her in a soak right now. So, a couple things about arboreal species. What people will tend to do, they may overfeed them. And the problem is these guys are perching on small limbs and they're putting all of their mass onto often very thin perches, and that causes pressure points. And so now what you're doing, as the bigger the snake is and the smaller perch, you're putting more pressure per square inch where that animal's sitting. So if they're eating large meals, even though they can eat the meal, what happens within a couple of days, they gas up as they're digesting it. So a whole bunch of things are going on inside the animal. It makes the animal uncomfortable. It also raises the overall core temperature of the animal. So one thing right off the bat is basically smaller meals, and in some cases more frequently, like a green tree python. If I were to feed the snake, I'm going to feed it a meal that is just large enough to make a little bit of a lump. And that is a very conservative meal that's going to end up being great for the snake. These guys are generally very tractable. The Biak locality green tree pythons tend to be very reactive, and we often see those as imports, and they tend to be more bitey. With this animal, I really have no worry about getting bit. These animals have a prehensile tail, so that means that they cling to things. So when you are choosing to handle them, you want to be careful as you unwind them from their perch, and you want to be careful not to damage the tail. They are delicate species. As far as just daily handling, I would not recommend that for basically any arboreal snake, because just taking them off the perch, and if you're not very good at it, you might do things you don't realize you're causing any damage, and that's not necessarily the thing to do. So let's talk about something a little bit more reactive. Amazon tree boas, super ultra reactive. This animal's kind of like, there you go, perfect. It's doing exactly what I think. So this animal is
fun.
Tend to be nervous. Oh, there we go. We're getting the whole. This is actually good. So we'll show. So Amazon tree boas, sometimes they can be tractable and you can handle them. This animal is absolutely not tractable. I don't even own this particular animal. This is Emily's, and this animal is going to want to bite me. It's got big eyes. It's got heat pits. Great sense of smell. Great sense of vision. So it's reacting to a host of different activities going on around it. So these animals are fairly easy to manage. Their husbandry is some of the easiest husbandry of some of the arboreals. An animal like this might eat like adult mice, and they do very well. This would be an adult size male or a female. Females are going to get heavier bodied, but they're pretty. There's a lot of different colors. They're not too expensive. So they're a great starter arboreal species. One thing, I used to breed these guys more so. The thing that frustrated me with these guys is when I'm feeding them, and let's say if I have a rack system or cages, a bunch of different animals, and I'm choosing to feed a lot of them at the same time, I'd feed one and then I'd go to feed another one, and then as I'm creating activity, they let go. They drop their prey and then they come after your movement, and it was very, very discouraging. But this is an Amazon tree boa. We'd also see annulated tree boas, Trinidad tree boas, and this is a really good starter.
Did you just get bit, Kevin?
No, I didn't get bit. But this is a very good starter if you're going to start thinking about something like an emerald tree boa or a Sanzinia, which is a Madagascar tree boa, which tend to be far more tractable. A lot of green tree pythons. A Biak green tree python might act a lot like this in some cases. They're just very reactive and very nippy. So, but this has got amazing. Here you go. See, there you go. Anybody wants to know anatomy of a snake bite?
Got it.
It's nothing. It's like, oh, I got a thorn on my hand.
I don't know why people fear them so much.
This is a Sanzinia.
This is a
Madagascar tree boa. This is a wonderful species. Really heavy bodied. The face is, hi baby. This is a female. So this is a mandarin phase. So they start out red when they're little. And then there's a green phase, which is more green. It's not green like an emerald tree boa green, but it starts out far more green. And then as they age, the green turns kind of drab, just as the mandarin does. But this is just a wonderful, monstrous animal. So there is no importation of these from the wild whatsoever. So there's 1% of 1% of what the original forest was. We have actually deforested it. Where the animals, pretty much all the animals there are in total jeopardy. Animals are going extinct from there. It's a sad reality. There's just too many people on the earth, and the animals are always the ones that are gonna suffer. And I will notice, as I deal with stuff like this, just in the more recent years, I'm noticing these animals in the wild are just vanishing. Stuff that we could have gotten, years ago, are just gone. And that's not because the pet trade, it's because we're going into their habitats. We don't have any value for the habitats. And we're basically ravaging the habitats for their resources, building, turning it into farmlands and whatnot. And it's just horrific. But there's these wonderful animals that live there. So this is a Sanzinia. These guys are pretty tractable pets. They're very sweet and gentle. They love to eat. They'll eat, fairly good sized meals. They're not as nearly as sensitive as a emerald tree boa. So she's a little PO'd that I took off her perch. I did want to show this one off because I think we need a name for this one. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
The little, whatever you want to call those. Are those crosses?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
I think I'd like to have somebody name the snake. Because, we have a lot of snakes, and I don't really have names for a lot of different animals, but this animal is very unique. So this one doesn't have much for a vertebral stripe, but this is indeed an Amazon basin, and I expect her babies to be beautiful. But there's something about these cameras. It's just animals, how they zero in on them. Oh. And so this animal's coming towards you because you're the agnostic thing right now going on. It's because it's in its face and stuff, but it's just really...
So if you guys want to name this snake, leave
Please.
a comment. Kevin will pick out the best one.
Do you see the muscles on the back of that snake's head?
Let's get close to that head.
Come here, sweetie. So she's just, look at the size of those muscles on that girl. So those are the muscles. So when she actually grabs a rodent or a bird, she really has penetrating power to really sink her enlarged teeth. She has, very good sized teeth.
You ever been bit by one of these, Kevin?
Oh, I've been bit by emeralds, yes. I've not really been bit by an Amazon basin. Maybe a little baby as I'm playing around. Yeah, little babies take some shots at me as I'm trying to sex them.
Ah.
Okay, here's a really nice male. He's getting there. So what's interesting about these, my babies sometimes don't start out looking, so dramatic. And then as they start coloring up, it's like, oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, look at that. So this animal might not even been that great when he was younger, but as they grow, the value only goes up because they start showing their caliber of what they're going to look like. But this animal is a winner. Very curious species. So this is an animal that if you are to mess with them, generally I try to be gentle, and pretty much I try to manage their enclosures without ever actually having to handle them or handling them infrequently. That's the trick, because they're very happy being perched up. Its tail is arboreal, so if I can take this tail. So look at that. How is that little snake able to support its entire body?
The prehensile tail.
That is amazing. That level of strength. This would be an adult-sized female. As they start getting larger, their weight, they just start getting thicker and denser. This one's really nice because the white pigmentation is kind of noisy. And I don't even care so much what their vertebral striping is always. I mean, I like to have ones with nice vertebral striping, but I like variation. I like this noise. So you could have Amazon Basin with no connection of the stripe, and it could still produce kick butt looking little babies, which end up being just fantastic animals. This is a girl, and she's generally pretty sweet. She's just a little freaked out. Not beautiful though. They're just so exquisite. Sad part is they're so expensive because they're so rare. And this is like one of those snakes that this is like kind of like a bucket list snake for many people. So in our next video, we'll cover some of the techniques and husbandry and management of them, so you can be successful. Like I said, this is a species that requires some involvement. A lot of the arboreal animals do require a little bit more refinement. People sometimes think you need to keep them hotter, you need to keep them wet. So an animal like this will thrive at maybe a cooler room temperature. It could be room temperature of 78 degrees with a good hot spot that gets it up into the lower to mid 90s, where it can go and bask. You want to manage your humidity, which is probably at least 60% or better. But you also need ventilation in the cage. And so what you do is you keep on adding moisture to the cage that keeps breathing and going out. Those are some of the keys, and we'll actually go through some of that. But I just wanted to kind of show off some of my animals. We got plenty of snakes in cages to show off too. I was trying to pick animals that are in random caging all over the place. The trick with Amazon Basins, for me to be a successful breeder, is to have a very good core group that I've been raising my animals, and because they're not the easiest to breed, and so you really want to have a nice group that you can grow, so you have good stock, good healthy animals, and when you pick out your pairings, you'll pick out your best animals to go and breed for the year. She's like, I'm going to zero in on your hand. So hopefully people like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will do Bolin's video because I know people are all dying for Bolin's. And please comment. Tell us what you're thinking.
Leave Kevin awkward comments so he gets shy.
Yeah, I love that. What you guys just did to me in my DMs.
There you go. More DMs, please. Yeah, send your weirdest DMs to Kevin.
Well, we do appreciate all your good comments and your feedback, everyone. And we have more, obviously, so many videos to do. But we are going to try to do some of the setup videos. So please tell me if you actually like some of the content in this video, because I did kind of meander on about certain things and kind of just showing them off. And the next video will be more about like, okay, this is actually a style of caging that works, how I set it up, and some of the basic behaviors and temperatures and feed cycles.